All right. Hey, everybody. This is Decryptolorian, or as some know me as DC. Today we have a very special guest with us. His name is Griff. He is an award-winning illustrator, author, and animator from Ireland. I am pretty excited that he's on because I discovered his work about it seems like months ago or years ago in the crypto universe, but probably around August, and I have been following it ever since. Big fan. So, Griff, welcome to the Well Community.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's great to be here, and I'm looking forward to our chat.
Yeah, definitely. So if you haven't, everybody, it's here. Please click on Griff's stream. You have both of ours, but click on Griff so you can check out. We're gonna go over a lot of stuff. So jump on. Okay, I am all set up. We got a recording going. Let's go. So Griff, tell everybody about yourself. Those who haven't seen Griff's work. Who is Griff?
Who is Griff? It's a mystery. I'm not even sure I know myself, to be honest. My name is Matt Griffin. I am from Ireland, and I'm here talking to you from County Clare in the west part of Ireland. And by trade, I'm a commercial artist, so I've been working in commercial illustration since 2008. So what is that? I'm in my 13th year now of working in the art business, mostly in publishing and film. So at some point during our chat, we'll go over to my regular website and I can show you some of the commercial projects I work on. But it's mostly book covers, book interiors, DVD covers, movie posters, some concept art for film and TV, and that kind of thing. And I'm also an author in that I've written a trilogy of children's books for around the 10 plus age bracket. The last one of those, the third, came out in 2017, and ever since I've been trying to develop some new stuff but never get past chapter 1. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
Man, there's a lot there. So first question for me, because I'm looking at some of the stuff that you've done. I mean, it says here you've worked on stuff like Dune, Star Wars, for clients such as Disney, Warner Brothers. I mean, first things first, tell us about some of those projects.
The dream gig since I was about 13 was to illustrate Dune. Because that's when I first read the book. I watched the movie all my life. I know some people hate it, but in our family we absolutely loved the movie, and I adored the movie as a young kid, and still do. And then I read the book, I think, when I was about 13, and I decided there and then that one of the things I want to do with my life is illustrate that book, and I got to do it a year or two ago with the deluxe edition, which is here. So I'm not sure if people have seen this around the place. It's in all good bookshops, and it was a real dream come true gig. And I guess in terms of my publishing work, it's among the kind of the pinnacles, or for me, it's the absolute pinnacle of my work in publishing. But I suppose to get there was a lot of years of struggle and a lack of work, and really clawing and scraping to try and make my way in the commercial art world. So I guess when we jump in here and look straight at the website and go straight to something like this project, it maybe belies the fact that leading up to this was a good 10 years of kind of manic struggle. But that's the way the commercial art business kind of works. When you start off, it's very, very tough, and you're lucky if you might get the odd job here and there in kind of local business, doing an illustration for a menu in a restaurant in my local town. Uh, One job every 6 months turned into one job every 3 months, and gradually, bit by bit, built up bigger clients, better portfolio, and more consistent work. And then eventually it kind of took off, but there was certainly a lot of hard yards in the build-up, I guess.
Yeah. Wow. I'm a huge fan of Dune, the movies, the book, the series. I know that I think there's a new movie coming out soon.
There is.
Yeah. I This is absolutely stunning. The artwork is just breathtaking. You've really captured the book in these illustrations. I am very awestruck right now.
Oh, thank you. That was very kind of you. I can tell you how it started, actually. Let me see if I can get out of that just to show you. So, what actually happened with that job was, do you know where I can show you? If you just bear with me for a second. I gave a talk about this a couple of years ago, and in it I described how the gig happened. So if I go down here, one thing I love to do is make textures with brush, ink, charcoal, water, whatever I can get my hands on. And most of my work, you'll notice if you look closely, is there's a lot of textures going on, and they're all handmade like this. Because I'm actually really terrible at sketching. That's what this whole talk was about, was that you see some artists and their sketchbooks look absolutely incredible and perfect, and they're beautiful objects, and this is what my sketchbooks look like. And this is an example of where I was commissioned to do a licensed print of a stormtrooper, and I thought, right, I'm going to get the notebook out and really plot and plan how this stormtrooper is going to look, and that's how far I got. Because I'm quite scatty. I can't really focus and concentrate on anything for very long. I'm kind of like a moth in a room full of light bulbs. I don't know which one to fly to, and I get tons of ideas all the time. So where that is actually advantageous is in making textures like this, because these would be a very clear representation of what the inside of my brain looks like a lot of the time. And the other way I make textures is I take photos with my iPhone of very random stuff. So if you can see my mouse cursor here, but those two pictures there on the left are actually tiles in a toilet, which I think look like planetary surfaces.
Yeah.
These two on the right are of a cement mixer outside my brother's house. So basically, everybody realizes that I'm the weird guy with the phone on his hands and knees in the garden when everybody else is just visiting family and friends. And I'm out taking pictures of a cement mixer. But then I take these textures and I start to play with them on the computer. And I love Dune, and I made this particular texture with ink and water. And I thought that looks really to me like I can see a desert storm kind of thing happening. And I thought, right, I'm going to draw a Dune image. I'm going to draw Paul and Muad'Dib in the desert here. And I'm going to do an ink drawing, and I'm going to put loads of care into it, and it's going to look amazing. And that's as far as I got. Pretty terrible. Abandoned after the first attempt. But I loved the texture. So I tried it again where I was more comfortable, brought it into the computer, and this was the image I made here of Paul. And I posted it up online on my social feeds, expecting maybe it might get a like or two, but it kind of took off, and it got hundreds and thousands of shares and likes on Tumblr and all these sites. And one of the people who saw it was an art director in Penguin who I had worked with before. And he dropped me an email and said, hey Matt, we're actually doing a new edition of Dune, and we love this image you made, and we'd like to license it for the cover. And I obviously jumped out of my chair, and started screaming and running around the place. But then I had a moment of calm, and I thought, no, this is my opportunity to try and illustrate the book fully. So I said, I'm maybe willing to license you this image for the cover, kind of trying to be cool. But I would really love to illustrate the interior of the book too. And they said, well, look, this isn't going to be a fully illustrated edition, but it is going to be a kind of a deluxe edition, so you could illustrate the end papers of the book, and we're going to get you to do a new map and stuff. So that's how it turned out. It's kind of a very large, big book. We upped the contrast on the cover image, and it's printed on this slightly foil-like paper. There's definitely a metallic kind of sheen to it, so it's really amazing in person. And I set about doing the interior illustrations, and I really, because it was my dream gig, I wanted it to be my best stuff. So for one image, I wanted to do a siege, and so this is called Home to the Siege. So you've got some Fremen arriving back home. All of these lines in the rocks, you can see, you would have seen them previously there when I was showing you my textures. I made all those with ink and a wide brush. By the way, please let me know if I'm prattling on way too long about a specific thing.
No, I am thoroughly enjoying myself, so keep going.
Like I could talk about textures for the next 2 hours, but I don't know if everybody else would find that as interesting as I do.
I find it completely fascinating, and I will say that I share that love of just taking pictures of things, and
Right.
and you know, I'm the same way as you. So I go out and I search the world for stuff to take pictures of, and it's funny because I'll have to send you some stuff I've been working on, but I do the same thing, like exactly the same thing, and it's just, I love it. It's crazy. People think it's kind of nuts sometimes, but I love taking those pictures of just common things in the real world and just going into Photoshop and manipulating the hell out of them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so we're not alone. It's there's a few of us out there.
Yeah. So keep going. I don't want to derail it. Keep going.
Oh God. So yeah, this was just another image from it. I wanted, obviously, you couldn't illustrate Dune without doing a worm. So we have Paul here and the Thumper and our friend the Worm approaching him here, and you know, there's lots of different renditions of sandworms from Dune. You know, the kind of the three flaps for the mouth and all that kind of stuff. And I wanted mine to be a little bit different, so I had done the magazine cover for Science Now, I think was the magazine, of a sea lamprey. I don't know if you've ever seen a picture of a sea lamprey, but it's the freakiest looking creature on Earth, and it's got this type of mouth. So I thought a sea lamprey's mouth would be perfect for a sandworm. And then even in the worm, there's actually probably about 10 or 11 different textures there, from cement mixers, tiles, old paper, whatever it might be. And they're all just layered in there and then fiddled with until I think they look okay. And yeah, that was sort of the dream gig. But then I do an awful lot of work in publishing. So yeah, as you mentioned Star Wars, I did a Star Wars cover for Lucasfilm a year or two ago, I think. So this was for their Galaxy's Edge novel. So, you know, they have the Disneyland park, Galaxy's Edge.
Yes.
And it's really quite cool. What they do is they have their story development wing in the company. And they have a name. There's a very famous name for it. I'm just mental blocking on it now. But so in order to give the theme park more depth, they commissioned authors and graphic novelists and all sorts of stuff to create the world of Galaxy's Edge, a kind of a whole new story sandbox and legend within the Star Wars universe that didn't exist before. So this was one of the books written by Zoraida Cordova. And I got to do the cover, and like, if I'm being completely and utterly honest, it's not my favorite piece of art I've ever done. But what I do like about it is the fact that there's a Star Wars logo on something I drew, and I'm an 80s kid, so that obviously means an awful lot to me. So in that piece, I don't completely love it, but I got to draw a TIE fighter, and there's Star Wars written on something I drew, so I will die a happy man.
Yeah.
Hopefully I get to do more. The art directors I worked with at Lucasfilm have said, we should work together again. So hopefully at some stage I'll get to do more. I'd love to do more. I don't know if you've ever heard of the Folio Society. They make these really stunning books. They're very special objects. They put a lot of care into the printing and the binding and that kind of thing. And they were a dream client of mine since I started in 2008. One of my goals was to work with them, and I got to do that in 2019. And the book they gave me was Arthur C. Clarke, Rendezvous with Rama. So that was another sort of dream gig ticked off the box. I just started learning Blender, so starting to bring 3D into my work was amazing and has completely changed how I work, and I love it. I'm not very good at it, and I'd say there's an awful lot of crypto artists here who are 3D experts who probably look at this and cringe a little bit because it's all very basic. This was one of my earliest things I made in Blender, and thankfully in Rama all the buildings and everything are all very strange, so I was able to just make up whatever I wanted. But like not even putting... I look at it now and think I could make it a lot better now anyway.
I'm looking at it and I think it's pretty darn good. So
Thank you. I'm actually wondering why the Lightbox won't, zoom in on the images. That's a shame. It's something I need to fix on my website. So yeah, another dream kind of gig there. And then I'm doing the new Dune books now as well that are written by Brian Herbert, the son of Frank and Kevin J. Anderson. So this is the first in the trilogy, and this came out last year, The Duke of Caladan, and I've just finished up the follow-up to that, which is The Lady of Caladan. So there's more Dune work coming out from me in the future. I did a comic cover there for Image. I like that piece of art. That's a couple of years ago now. And outside of publishing, where I do an awful lot of book covers, some of which you can see here. This isn't even all of them. This is just kind of a fraction for some authors like Rick Riordan, who wrote, I forget, very famous, they made a movie out of it. Agatha Christie, I'm doing their books, working on a third one now. So a lot of book covers, and then I also work in film. So in film, I mostly do DVD covers for Arrow. Here is a bunch of DVD covers I've done. Again, this isn't all of them because I'm actually working on number 95 now. So I've done an awful lot, but this is a kind of a selection of them.
Wow.
This was my very first one I ever made for the Haunted Palace. And actually, out of the 95 pieces of art I've made for them, I think it's still my favourite. I do a lot of horror stuff for them, so this is one for The Ring. And as you can see, that she's forming the mouth, screaming. That's actually my face, by the way.
That's great.
Yeah. Whenever you see hands or a face or something, I'm using myself as reference. My phone, as well as being filled with pictures of random surfaces for textures, it's also filled with really embarrassing reference photographs of myself, which like pop up every now and again on the widget, and it's highly embarrassing.
Now, there is something here. So I don't know, for those viewers looking at this, do you catch that the mouth is actually, right there? So that's the girl, right, from The Ring.
Yeah, that's her. So actually, I can't take full credit for this idea because in my original concept, I had her crawling out of the mouth in a very contorted kind of pose. And it was a fellow artist called Sunny Day, who's an amazing artist. And himself and his partner go by the name We Buy Your Kids, and they'd be very famous in the poster scene, which we'll probably end up talking about shortly because I'm involved in that. But it was Sunny Day who said, "Why don't you make the mouth her hair?" And I thought, oh my God, it's genius. So any time I post this art or talk about it, I always add the disclaimer that the best part of the art was somebody else's idea. And I wish it was mine, but it wasn't. But yeah, it's still a piece I'm quite proud of. Candyman was the last steelbook I did there.
Oh yes, Candyman.
That film terrified me as a young fella. I wouldn't say Candyman 3 times in front of a mirror for a long time. In fact, I wonder if I still would. I don't know if I would. And there's loads of stuff, little Easter eggs I hide in there. Like if you zoom right in, and nobody ever would, but it was always you. Was a kind of a quote from the film. Is in the
Wow, this is just unbelievable. I'm sure everyone is as shocked as me. Just keep going.
Like even so, when I'm doing a DVD cover or a film poster, even if I've seen the film loads of times before, I'll watch it again a couple of times with my notebook. Sketching out ideas, and it's little things like the type treatment I did for the title here is actually based on a piece of graffiti that's in the film that says they end up in a kind of a public toilet, and on the wall the word "sweets" is written in this very distinctive graffiti type, and I took that as the style for how Candyman is written. It's stuff that literally I'd say maybe only 2 or 3 other people in the world will go, "Ha! That's I recognize that type," or maybe nobody else, only me will know. But that's the sort of anal retentive stuff I do for this kind of work. Reanimator is another steelbook I did, which I like. And again, I can show you another example of me. So that's my face. That's my face. That's my face. These are my hands. It keeps clicking right out. So yeah, you got the whole steelbook, and actually in person again, because it's steel, it's got that metallic finish, and it looks really, really nice in person. This cover, and I'll show you just one more in the DVD covers thing. Was years ago when I first started, I made this poster for Pan's Labyrinth. I couldn't decide on a colorway, so there's 4 colors. This was just a bit of fan art, and it's still to date my most popular piece I've ever made. It's still the most shared thing I've ever made, even though it's easily 10 years ago, I'd say I made it. Even Guillermo del Toro tweeted the art at the time when I did it, and a German company called Cape Light licensed it to use on a special edition Blu-ray. So something I made is a bit of fan art. I'm really chuffed to getting this in the post was a big day, because it's one of my top favorite films, and to have it on something official for it was really, really cool.
Wow. And how did you even get started with doing these movie covers, book covers? I mean, the short story.
Yeah, because it is an epically long story, so I'll very much give the summary. So really what it is making the art for yourself that you want to do, and then putting it out in the world, and gradually trying to claw your way in. So I there was no way I just sort of landed in making DVD covers and jumped into Pan's Labyrinth and dived into doing Dunes. It was very much baby steps over years. So to do all those Arrow DVD covers, I would have made a few kind of alternative movie posters, right, for myself, fan art posters. And I would have sent them to Arrow years ago, and they gave me my first gig, which was that Haunted Palace thing. And similarly for publishing, I would have made some art that had type on it and showed that I could do both illustration and type and typography, whether it was my own handmade type, which which is my preference, or using typefaces. And then I would have sent it to publishers. And my first book covers would have been few and far between. I would have got one book cover gig. It would have been for a very low fee for a smaller publisher, but then gradually, bit by bit, built up the work and got hired on kind of bigger and bigger jobs. But when I get hired by a publisher, they often put in work of yours they like as an example to say, we like this, could you make something like that? And that Pan's Labyrinth image is in every single one of those, even now, 10 years later.
Wow.
They still put that in as an example. And the June stuff now also goes in. So it was very much fighting tooth and nail to get there. There were very dark days, and I had been living in London for 7 years, and I was working in the media there. When I decided to take the plunge and kind of quit my job and be a full-time illustrator, and I moved home to Ireland in 2008, I met a girl within a couple of months. We realised that was it. We got married. We had started having kids, and all while I was trying to build this thing up. And there were days where I wasn't getting any jobs for a couple of months, and she was just very supportive and patient. But it was definitely by no means just landing into getting this amount of work. It was scrapping and fighting for it the whole way, and kind of not giving up. I'm a very belligerent, stubborn person.
You have to be, for sure. And so when you first started, was it more of you just finding a project that you like or a concept that you like, and then submitting it and pushing that way? And then in contrast now, do they actually reach out to you saying, hey, we'd like you to do this? Or are you still like picking the projects and then pushing for it?
No, so back then it was very much make the work and send it around. You would make a list of publishing companies or advertising agencies or whoever you wanted to work for, and you'd make a list of their art directors, and you'd send them a bunch of samples and say, hi, I'd love to work for you guys. And they'd get back and say, thanks very much, some nice stuff here, we'll keep you on file, we'll let you know. And then maybe you'll hear from them, or maybe you most likely won't. And so that's what you did. You went around, like even at the very start, it was going around knocking on doors and meeting people in person in Dublin ad agencies and stuff. And then as it built up and gradually, slowly but surely, my work started getting better too. I mean, that's something I suppose that can't be ignored. Like the work back then was trite compared to what I can do now, mostly. And so you're kind of improving technically all the time. And then one sort of big job leads to another. And once you've worked for one decent client and you can put Warner Brothers or whoever in your client list, then someone else is more likely to hire you because you've been trusted with a big property in the past. And now, I mean, I've had an agent. I'm with Shannon Associates in America, in New York, and they handle all my commercial work. I've been with them for about 6 or 7 years, and thankfully, I'm very, very lucky to be in a position where I can kind of pick and choose what I want to do. Stuff comes in all the time, and I can now say I can't fit that in, or I still find it very hard to say no to stuff, to be honest. But if it's really not for me, I can say no. I'm starting to do a little bit of concept art. So about 3 years ago, I worked on background concepts for Transformers.
Oh wow!
First cartoon. Some of these made it into the cartoon. This was one of the hardest jobs ever, actually, because it's very much different to my regular work. And they very much had a look they want to go for. Originally I would have thought they're hiring me to do me. So these were a couple of the first ones, and they're like, it's not really Transformers, it's dark and dingy, that's not really what we're going for. And it was then doing more stuff like this where the shapes are there was an awful lot of art direction. I think I had the client, the animation company, tearing their hair out with my first submissions. But they ended up in the cartoon, so that was a cool job, and it was in a Transformers cartoon. So if I could tell Kid Me that, he would be very happy.
Right?
Yeah. And then last year I worked on this, which is a show that is in development. Actually, for a friend of mine who's a fellow author, our books came out at the same time, and we did the PR circuit together. And his books got optioned for a TV show, and I got to work on the concept art for it. So this isn't out yet, but it's it's in development, and hopefully someday we'll see Knights of the Bar Dark. So yeah, this kind of stuff. You can see I'm starting to use 3D an awful lot more, and it really helps with, before mapping out perspective and things like that was an absolute pain, but now you just build it in Blender and Bob's your uncle. Perfect perspective.
Wow. So I did want to just comment for all the artists that are watching right now. It's really inspiring, honestly, to think. I love the level of scrapping that you've had to do. The trials and tribulations. Just you keep pushing, and I think that speaks volumes. It is extremely inspiring, and it's just I love that scrappiness, because I'm a scrapper myself, and always have been, because you need to make it. I mean, you can't always get lucky, right? And look at the progression, as you said. You used to fight for things, and now you get but you also appreciate it too, because you had to scrap in the beginning, and now when you get a project delivered to you, you say, oh geez, I don't want to give that up, and that speaks volumes, especially to me, because that's how I am as well. So it's quite amazing. So I hope everybody appreciates that.
Well, yeah, thank you. And it is a case of you make your own luck, really. I mean, there's an awful lot of luck involved. There's a lot of who you know, not what you know. There's a lot of right place, right time. I mean, even that Dune job, there was an awful lot of serendipity there, because it was just an image and I happened to work with an art director before who happened to then follow me, who then saw the Dune image, who then that book landed on his lap on his desk, and he must have just seen it a day or two before, and it was just absolute planets aligning kind of thing. But at the same time, yeah, there's definitely a huge amount of making your own luck. And I think in the commercial art world, there's probably an awful lot of people who drop away because they don't think they're going to get there. They just decide this isn't sustainable for me. And I'd imagine maybe the same will happen, and is happening, with crypto art. That if you're not getting sales, you think, what's the point? But the point is, you got to keep pushing. If you give up, that's it. It's done. It's over. Whereas if you keep fighting, you're still in with a shot.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a great lesson for everybody. You just can't give up. You have to keep going, and I do. You had some real gems there as well when you said that you did the Transformers project, and it wasn't quite your style, but you did it. I mean, it looked amazing, absolutely amazing, very clean. Not your style, for sure, but and you said it was one of your harder pieces, but you did it. I mean, it's you got to know when to turn off you a little bit and then work for the client, which may not be super fun, but it's still, you produced amazing work. So
there's an awful lot at the start when you're first starting out. Is someone will say, can you draw in this style? And you think, it's a paying job, and I haven't had a paying job in 5 months. Yes, I'll draw in whatever style you want. I can, no problem. But then when you do that, your own voice never comes out, and there's no longevity in that whatsoever in the commercial world. And in fact, I think in any artistic pursuit, until you have your own voice coming through, that's when the longevity hits. And then eventually what happens is you mightn't have that voice at first either. You might know what it is. But eventually you start to get it, and it starts to come through in your work, and you'll get to a point where someone will see a piece randomly on the internet and they'll know who did it. Like someone might look at a piece, I'd hope, and say that was definitely Matt Griffin. And clients love that. And then you get hired to do you rather than to ape some other kind of style. And thankfully that's sort of what happens now is, they want me to do my thing. There's the odd exception, like Transformers, where it's, we do not want you to do your thing. You're doing. And I might have said, well, then you've hired the wrong guy. Thanks very much. But it was such a brilliant learning curve. They taught me loads on the project, and I learned loads on the project. So it was totally worth it. I guess you gotta know when it's worth it for yourself and when it isn't.
Exactly. Yeah. And what's funny is I have actually had some of your pieces in my hands because I did own back when I actually had DVDs. It's been a long time, but I did own Pan's Labyrinth. So I probably held one of your pieces in my hand at one point, years ago. So that's pretty awesome.
Possibly, yeah. If there's any Arrow collectors out there, the chances are very high that you've held something I've drawn, because I've done so many covers for them. And much like crypto art collectors and poster collectors and all kinds of collectors, the Arrow collectors have a huge community, and they're very vocal about the artwork that appears on the covers. You can be torn apart by Arrow collectors when they don't like the art you've done, and that's happened to me.
Wow.
So the other thing I'm involved in outside of crypto art, so we've got the publishing and the film work, is licensed poster art. So this is another collectible market with an amazing community of collectors and an amazing community of artists. And basically you have galleries that acquire licenses from film companies and film studios, and they then commission artists to make alternative posters for these properties under license. So if I was to make a Dune poster unlicensed, I could get a cease and desist. It's illegal to try and sell that, but this is licensed art, so it's legally allowed to be sold by the gallery.
Wow.
And these, many of these would be screen prints, right? So one color is laid down at a time with a screen and a squeegee. And I was sort of hovering around the scene for a while, but not fully in. And it was only in the last couple of years that I got into it properly. And some artist friends and some gallery friends kind of took me in and started giving me commissions. And like crypto art, there's drops. The drops are hyped. They sell out in seconds if you're lucky. They're limited edition, mostly limited edition screen prints. So the War of the Worlds here is a recent one. That's actually lithograph, so it's not a screen print, it's a digital print. That's a variant, so you get color variants in the prints. So that would be limited edition. This would be an open edition, so you can buy as many as you want. This is a recent one for Vice Press and Bottleneck Gallery for one of my favorite films. So this was a kind of a dream come true, getting to do a poster for this. This is quite a recent one, actually. It's only just out a couple of months. This is the color variant. So on the actual print itself, this type here, these gold bits, that's actually metallic gold ink, so it'll be nice and shiny on the actual print. And then the variant, it has metallic silver ink. And then here you can see an animation of the color separations. Now, I am not yet an expert in separating my work for screen print, so I'm very lucky. I've got an artist friend of mine, Matt Ferguson, who's one of the most famous poster artists going, and he does my separations for me very kindly. For now, it's not going to last forever, but you can see that that's how they're made.
Wow.
He just says to me, make whatever you want and I'll separate it. And I'll make it and say, there's no chance you're going to be able to separate this. And he does it. He's a magician. but he's also an amazing artist. So he runs Vice Press and art directs me, and it's really cool working with an art director who's who you respect as an artist, because you really value their opinion. Let me see. So this is another lithograph digital print, Silent Running, which is another favorite film of mine. There's the color variant. Let me know now if you want to pause on something, if I'm going too fast, or this is one.
This is great.
This is for Alien, yeah. This was an old concept actually that I'd done before, but I hated the execution I'd done. So I decided I'd love to go back and try it again with the skills I have now. And so this is the result again, where Blender is helping me out. And the array modifier, thank God for that. Make one and then just down they go. So that came out not so long ago. In prints, these would be limited edition and sold out pretty quickly, but what you get are things called APs, so artist proofs. So I get a stack of the posters to sell myself, and actually they go to a friend of mine called Ben Bow in the UK, who sells my APs for me, and similarly they go as drops. So both Dune and Alien APs will be on sale on the 29th of January, and all going well, they'll sell out too. I don't want to count my chickens. There are the color separations on Alien. Go. The book cover. So we brought this out as a limited edition screen print with Bottleneck, who are based in New York. And so yeah, we did this, and we also released, the variant was on rainbow foil paper, so the shiny foil kind of comes through. And Matt Ferguson once again did the separations on this. I thought there's no way it can be done. Look,
that's awesome.
It's like magic, isn't it? I don't know how.
Yeah.
So each layer of that would go down in ink, one after the other.
Wow. So I do want to transition.
Yes, let's go.
Let's start talking about your crypto art.
Okay.
So first things first, tell us how you got involved with crypto art.
So, a friend of mine, James White, also known as Signal Noise, I noticed he was talking about it on Twitter. And I had heard of crypto art, and I have a feeling that actually one of the platforms, maybe even Known Origin, who are the platform I'm on at the moment, they might have reached out, but I didn't understand it. I think this is probably a barrier for a lot of people in my profession. When you're told about it, you just can't get your head around it, because what's to stop someone it's the right click thing, right? It takes a kind of a second for you to get that a right clicking an image has no value, just like someone scanning one of my posters and selling it has no real value. So once you get your head past that, you're in. And James was in, and I dropped him a DM and I said, I've heard something about this, what is it? And he thankfully explained, and then he brought me into a chat with the Known Origin guys, and Gavin Strange, who's also known as Jam Factory, and then also Genuine Human, who you'll know, Chris Skinner, who's a friend of mine for a good few years from the commercial world, and we all kind of started at the same time together, all equally clueless, and all figuring it out as we went at the same time, and still are. So we've got our little Discord group, and we still chat about stuff on a daily basis, and we're very much kind of in it together. So after talking to James and being brought into a conversation with the guys at Known Origin, just sort of dove in, and I had made this series called Headgear, which people are hopefully familiar with at this stage. I'm just going to go back here to show you. It was a personal illustration project, so I do a lot of these personal projects too. And
This
I
this is how I actually discovered your art, because I think it was I kind of went down the rabbit hole of I followed Signal Noise, and then he shared it, and then I followed you, and I think that it just kept steamrolling from Genuine Human. Then
yeah,
I'm like, oh, these are treasures. I'm gonna follow everybody.
yeah, absolutely, yeah. And you see, because we're a group of mates, and we all came in at the same time. We obviously, well, we love each other's work, so it's not hard to promote each other's work. But there was also a lot of that. So I think, yeah, there was that kind of organic growth from each of us, showing off each other's stuff, kind of thing. So it was a personal project basically. Started making these helmets, and I just really loved it. I find it loads of fun. And coming into crypto, the very first thing I thought was I could do something with headgear. And actually, David from Known Origin also had suggested doing something with headgear. And I guess I thought what could be cool would be collectible cards. So that's what we have. And a couple of weeks ago minted the final card, and that's it. There'll be no more headgear cards. Headgear as a project will continue, as in making weird looking helmets and under the banner of headgear, but there'll be no more cards. They're done now. And so I made my Genesis piece, which isn't a card. So I don't know why. I just thought the first thing I mint in crypto art will be headgear related, but not a card. I would have had a good reason at the time. Audio is, something I love playing with as well with animation. So all of my animated clips, audio plays a big part, and I love people to use headphones when they're listening to it for the best experience. So that was my Genesis, and then then this was the first headgear card, and actually, yeah, one of my favorite ones. So made this first, made it an edition of 3, and thankfully they sold out. And I've just continued from there. Headgear 2, there's still some available. Headgear 3 sold out. For number 5, I wanted to do something a little bit special, so I decided to make an animated card, again where sound plays a very, very big role. And that is a 1 of 1, and it's still available. And on a lot of these pieces now I have offers open, because I realized that the value of ETH has gone up. So what would have been priced in one way before is priced very differently now in terms of fiat value. So offers are open on these things. I don't want to do shilling on this chat, so I hope it doesn't come across like I am shilling.
Oh, not at all. Yeah, we're just very much enjoying your pieces. And for those of you who haven't seen it, this is a great discovery. So keep going.
Well, like I say, there's what I wanted to do was I wanted to do a card set. Okay, so going back to number 1, made these graphics. This actually is a bit of a mistake because it's meant to say standard rare. But anyway, number 1, first card. So I had this kind of card template to work from. In a lot of my work, there's recurring names and themes. So 3 Moons is something that comes up an awful lot. I mentioned I'm an author, so I'm very much into storytelling. And 3 Moons is something that crops up in an awful lot of my personal projects. It's kind of an evil mega corporation. And on my Twitter bio for Griff, the crypto art, you'll see that it says I'm property of 3 Moons Megacorp or UltraCorp. So all the cards are issued by Griff courtesy of 3 Moons. It's just a bit of fun. So I had this template and I wanted them to have differing levels of rarity. So 1 of 3, 1 of 10, 1 of 20 for very common, and they each have names like a common X. Rare X is a 1 of 1. Then you have this one. I made a 1 of 1 because this was actually the first headgear image I ever made. This is the first drawing I did where I said, I want to do more of these crazy helmets. So I thought it's kind of a special image in terms of the series, so it's a 1 of 1. This is my personal favorite one, so I used an animated one also with sound, and some nice little effects there. Oh no, that's one of 3. Apologies, and one of those has been sold. And then the last one went up, and it's a run of 5, and that concludes the card series. But I do have plans for headgear going forward, because I really love making them, to be honest. The look of this one, it's very much the way it flickers and the way the animation is done. It's kind of inspired by cartoons I watched as a kid, like Ulysses 31. I wanted it to look like that sort of old animation. Yes, if anyone's going on to have a look at them, stick the headphones on, because the sound plays a big role in these things. So, just one second, I'm just going to get a drink of water, because I'm starting to lose my voice.
Sure. Yeah. While you drink, what inspires you because all the different head gear looks a little bit different, right? And you probably have many things that inspire you. How do you? I mean, what's your process for starting one? Do you just start going and see where it takes you, or do you actually have something in mind first?
Yeah, for headgear, it's 100% just start and see what happens. So I have my profile that I made, of a person, and I just start drawing crazy shapes and seeing what happens, and that's why I find them so fun. It's just exploring, and I keep going until I think it looks cool. Simple as that.
I love it. That's my favorite way to do it. Keep going until it looks cool.
Yeah, exactly. And then, when I started doing them, I didn't know Blender, so I didn't know Blender making that or that. But then I learned Blender, so I start to bring in some 3D elements into it, and that's actually where headgear is going next. So the next series of headgear images will be brand new, new helmets, and they're going to be 3D 360 animation, so a nice little revolve around the helmet so we can see it from all angles. That's the plan. Headgear 363s. You heard it here first. So that's why I love making them. And then Other Seas of the Suns is another series that I love, because this is the stuff that's, to me personally, most meaningful, because I'm a big sci-fi nut. I like the philosophical end of sci-fi. I contemplate our place in the universe an awful lot, and these images are kind of an expression of that. These little thoughts about alien worlds and that kind of thing. Again, I'll go back here because it's... oh yes. So, there was a lot of images in the series. For these ones, for fun, I started making them look like vintage book covers, because I love vintage book covers. But this is where Other Seas of the Suns art came from. There's even music, Other Seas of the Suns, of songs and stuff. Concept albums, the whole 9 yards, all based on in and around this stuff. And then because of the magic of crypto and the fact that it's digital, means we can have an animation. So I made the first animated in the series, Other Seas of the Suns, called Apogeic. My friend Jay, Genuine Human, always jokes that I misspelled apologetic for these, but it's actually meant to be apogeic. With heavenly bodies orbiting the Earth. And I tell him that, and he still says it's apologetic. This was actually the very first, and again, sound is a major, major factor with these. So we're not really getting the full picture just by looking at the screen share, but it'll do for now. And this is the second animated one in the series. So.
Yeah, I love the colors in this. Just absolutely breathtaking.
Thank you. Yeah, I kind of wanted them to be moving paintings. That's why they're not 16:9. I think this is actually 2000 pixels wide instead of 180 or 1080. The VHS and the vintage crackle and stuff is just, it's showing my age. That's what everything looked like when I was a kid growing up. So when I do animations, I like to give it that look. It gives it the dropped frames and the crackles, and I don't know. And they're just little meditations on our existence, which is going very deep. And they're two of the series. These giants were older images of mine. That was a big series for me, huge series that got my name spread around the place when I was struggling years ago. And these giant images proved very popular, so I thought I'll put them up as 1/1 NFTs and we'll see what happens. They are yet to find their collector, but hopefully someday, because they're very close to my heart, those images. In fact, for these, I think I have written, yes, they're accompanied by a short, brief little story, so they're different from my other stuff in that regard. There are two of those. Knights, I love drawing knights, but I like drawing knights with wires sticking out of them because I've got some kind of weird fascination with putting wires on everything. So this is one of my futuristic knights. Again, like based on a series I've done over the years, I have a whole bunch of other knight images, which I haven't minted. I'm still very much in two minds about minting old work. I chop and change about that. Sometimes I think, I should, because it'd be nice for people to own it, because otherwise it's just sitting on my hard drive. But then other days I think, I know it should all be brand new stuff I'm making, so I chop and change. This was a new image I made just for crypto, and you can see, look, there's a 3 moons sticker on her sword and 3 moons up here on her helmet, so it crosses over. I'm just going to take another little drink here, sorry. Oh yeah, The Exile. So this was another personal image I made that I always really liked. You can't read it there, but it's 3 Moons Entertainment Corp there, and some of my other characters that I do, the Endling, Space Demon Assassin, and Warp Dog. And it's kind of just a fake comic cover, there's no comic for The Exile except for the one on my head. And I'd done this image years ago, and I thought it'd be cool to put it up as an NFT. And then being able to animate and post animation, I thought, this is a perfect opportunity to animate that. So that's what I did. And then you have the Exile now, and the asteroids are all moving.
Wow. Now, do you animate in... oh, geez, it's eluding me right now. What do you use to animate?
So for this, the asteroids were done in Blender. But then it's brought into After Effects and finished there.
Yes, that's what I'm looking for. So yeah, I've been playing with After Effects myself. I love it. I could definitely see. I like these asteroids are awesome. How they move in the way you actually have them move is. It just something like this would look amazing in one of those new digital photo frames that are coming out, right? I think this is where art is going.
Exactly.
No more is it just stagnant and kind of there, in galleries and people look. I mean, moving art, fluent art is really interactive and fun. And I mean, look at even when you're showing your screen behind Exile. You have to have a layer, and then behind it you have to have you have a moving rock behind it. It takes a lot of skill to do that kind of stuff and really have an eye for it. So this is pretty spectacular in my opinion.
Well, thanks very much. That's what excites me most about crypto art. It is genuinely not the kind of. It's nothing to do with the money you can earn. And I'm not trying to be holier than anybody saying that. I mean, yes, it's incredibly exciting to be able to earn something from art that I love to make.
Yeah, it's so fresh, it's so new. It's totally a different medium that is just. I think it's just exploding. right? And it's only a matter of time before it explodes even further. But this is, to me, this is the future. So yeah, let's call it. It's been a great session. I'm very happy that everyone was able to join us. Again, Griff is just an amazing artist, illustrator. If you can, please check out more of his work, and definitely follow him on Unknown Origin. It's a fantastic. I'm blown away by all of his work, and just what a great person he is. And I hope that you are too. I hope you learned something. I hope that you are inspired as artists to, um, do the same thing. Get out there, share your work. Scrap. Do everything you can to make it in this world, because most of the time, sometimes you get lucky, but most of the time you don't. So that's what it's about, the journey, and it's about really pushing for things. So with that, thanks everybody for joining us. Really appreciate it. I know Griff appreciates it too. Again, check out his stuff. We've thrown everything out there for you, and this will be coming on the Well Community YouTube soon. This whole interview. So I hope that you check it out. Hope you subscribe. And yeah, I hope everybody has a wonderful, wonderful Saturday. Thanks a lot, everybody. I'll see you at the next one.